Hey everybody, this is the 11th episode of the Most Overlooked Albums. This series is a series that not only looks at some of my all-time favorite albums, I think they're albums that are neglected or overlooked. This next album, today's episode, is possibly my all-time favorite album. It's easily in my top three. It's hard not to have it at number one. And of course, I am talking about this here. The Blue Nile Hats. I actually saw this tour in Boston in 1990 when they first came out with this album. It's a real important album, I believe. And let's take a look at it song by song. The first song on this album sets the pace for the melancholy feel that will be the whole album, and that's a song called Over the Hillside. It is just slow and nice and ambient, and it really sets the mood of the album, and it's one of my all-time favorites. Song 2 on the album is called The Downtown Lights. This song has been covered by Rod Stewart and also has been covered by Annie Lennox on her album Medusa, where she does all the covers. My favorite version is the Blue Nile's version on their album, which is this one, and it's just a great song. A little bit more up-tempo, kind of like a depressing version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World type of vibe. But just, it's a down feel, and I dig it. Song 3 on this album is called Let's Go Out Tonight. Again, we're now getting back into the deep melancholy. This song has been covered by Rick Springfield, and Craig Armstrong did it on his album where he had Paul Buchanan from the Blue Nile sing. I also seen, I can't remember who it was, but there was a jazz artist who sang this as well. It's a great song, some beautiful chords. The sentiment of this album and the feel, I've mentioned it before, this kind of reminds me of Roxy Music Avalon, where it's just like this melancholy, at peace type of feel. This one has a little bit more yearning in this album than the Avalon album. Where the Avalon album seems to be a little bit more maybe happy, this seems to be a little bit more yearning and angst, but still has a lot of melancholy. Song 4, Headlights on the Parade. I effing love it. It's got a little bit more upbeat tempo. There's a beautiful piano line that's played throughout the whole song, and I love Paul Buchanan's voice. Just a great song. For a while, this was my favorite song on the album, but I think now Over the Hillside edges it out, and but neither one of my all-time favorite. We'll get to that. Song 5 is definitely the most down feel, and it's called From a Late Night Train. And it just, the way he sings and the music and the ambience of it, it really paints a picture in your mind of a city at night and somewhat loneliness. I want to say there's a loneliness in his voice. He has one of those voices where it's like he could sing the phone book, and I know you've heard that expression before, but this guy literally, he could sing the phone book where you'd be like, oh man, did he just say John Smith? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Paul Buchanan, you the man. Song 6 is called 7 a.m., and this song kind of now has a little bit more of a pulse again, like Song 4. It's a little bit more upbeat, kind of, and has a groove, has a funkier bass line. It's a keyboard bass line. Again, it's a little bit of yearning in this one as well, but overall, fantastic. The last song on this album is my favorite song. It's my favorite because it sets a vibe, it has this yearning, it's melancholy, but it has a pop sensibility where you could take an acoustic guitar and play this and just really get across a beautiful message. The song is called Saturday Night, and the sentiment in the song just hits me right. Everything about this song is great. I think this could be one of the most important songs that the Blue Nile's done. I think it's brilliant. I think the album's brilliant. I also think if you give this album just one listen, you're not doing yourself a justice. This is an album when you're home alone, it's nighttime, you want to relax, you put this album on, you start cleaning your guns. No, I'm just kidding. you put it on, whether you're having a glass of wine or you're just having a hot cup of tea, relaxing in a dark room, listening to this album, you will hear a vibe. And I think it takes you somewhere. And to me, when music can take you somewhere, it's done a fantastic job. It's funny because a lot of people, when they meet me and they see, I'm generally in person, a really happy-go-lucky guy. I love to laugh. I love jokes. I love movies. I'm always laughing. When it comes to music, I want to be angered, which is why I love heavy metal. I love that anger and that fight. Or I want to be torn down and made to cry. So I love sad. I love melancholy. I love something that pulls on my heartstrings. When I hear a song like Whenever I See Your Smiling Face by James Taylor, all I want to do is the Carlton. Whenever I see you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's nothing that I would really listen to or enjoy. When it comes on the radio, I will listen to it sometimes because there's a goofiness to it. And like I said, I like to laugh. But to me, musically, I wouldn't be like... that would be something that I would listen to. It just doesn't really do it for me, other than it's nostalgia of growing up to it. But I'm just saying, I definitely like to either be angered or made sad. And this record is a very introspective record. I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. I think this is one of the most overlooked bands of all time. They've put out 4 albums, and every album's great. This is clearly their best. I think A Walk Across the Rooftops, which is their first album, is another great album. They do a version of Easter Parade on a B-side with Ricky Lee Jones. That's fantastic. The album High is unbelievable, and the album Peace at Last is great. Just an all-around great band. And if you really want to get yourself depressed, look up Paul Buchanan singing Mid-Air. That's about the breakup of the Blue Nile. And it's a beautiful song. Anyways, check out the album. And I'll see you next week. Very good.